Let's say the invocation.
Toward the One, the perfection of love, harmony and beauty, the only being, united with all the illuminated souls who form the embodiment of the Master, the Spirit of guidance.
So what I want us to do right now is we're going to do the earth breath, as Murshid Sam gave it to us. So now the earth breath is a very stable rhythm. So you want to really establish a real stable rhythm of 4 in, 4 out. Feel your feet on the earth. Feel your body. And you notice the direction of earth as you exhale is on the horizontal plane. It's very flat and encompassing. So get your stable base really on the earth. Now when we're doing some of these, feel free to sit down and sit, because we're not going to all do it at once, but keeping the breath. Feel it spreading out over the earth as you exhale. And what sort of things are you aware of? Just the things, think of what you consider your duty. Earth is connected with duty, the sense of our responsibilities. There's a steadiness, a loyalty. So rhythm of accomplishment here when you get the earth breath. Glad to have this body, you're glad to be walking on this planet. You bring steadiness. You spread your being out to encompass all in this plane of existence. You're very grateful to have this rhythm of the drum. You take refuge in that steadiness. Check in with your feelings as you do this. You want to establish claiming this body, this place on earth, this steadiness of being. We're going to keep going through this, only now, this group that's walking now, I'm going to ask you to, without changing the concentration on earth, bring in the ether into the earth, that sense of the formlessness, penetrating form, connection with the mother of the earth. Your breath is going to become still rhythmical, but it's going to become more refined, and you're going to feel it bringing light into the denseness of earth, where we can feel overwhelmed by our duties, our responsibilities, the pressure of events, the coarseness of things. But now we're breathing light into it. We're breathing from this place that's placeless, this form that's formless, right into the earth. It gives us a sense of the mystery of the earth, the sacredness in the earth. There's nothing to fear here. eternity in a grain of sand. Spirit penetrating the densest place of matter. It's breathing too. Earth is breathing. Come try this again as it gets more and more in the atmosphere, it gets easier to do. Touching that formless place, that refined place right into the earth, breathing it right into the depth of everything that is heavy, right into the rhythm of earthly accomplishment. Okay, let's take up one more of these and then we'll do another dance. The breath for water, see the earth direction is flat. The water is a downward movement. Murshid gives the breath for water as being, the exhalation is going through the left nostril. So the inhalation through both nostrils, and then exhaling left. And as you exhale, you feel this tendency of water to always move downward. Taking the path of least resistance. Letting itself be pulled by the gravity of the earth. So continuing to breathe, exhaling left and feeling the downward movement of the breath, of the water. So there's a movement away from stiffness as we rise through the elements. The earth is the most fixed in that sense. Water is more fluid, and it's cohesive. It holds together and flows. And so this is the way Murshid would give it, as you exhale left, you're with your hands emulating this flow, this downward movement of the breath, and you're letting your body flow like a river. Give yourself to the life of feeling. Stay with your feeling. Your feeling is flowing, moving, cohesively moving, drawn by the ocean. We'll do as before. We'll just go through with the element itself, just getting the feeling of it, taking some time to feel it, and then standing out, and others coming in. Become that water flowing. Let it enter your life of your feelings, your emotions. Water is so self-effacing. It's always giving itself up. It's going down. Whenever you feel stiffness in your body or resistance, give it over to the water and let it take you down. Let it take you down into flowing. But if you start spinning, you're showing the influence of the air, you see. The water is going in a direction. It's not just going around. It's moving. Where it's drawn, you give over to that directionality of its flow. And now, staying with that same water breath, we want to refine it and feel the sacredness of it, the spirit infused in it, the formless penetrating it. How water becomes filled with baraka and blessings. It's charged with life. The sacred river, the sacred spring, the baptismal water, the ablutions. And so then when you bring ether into the water, you have this sense of As Papa Ramdas said, like the holy river Ganges that's flowed down from the mountains and become one with the ocean, I continue to flow into the ocean. You have this sense of the enlivenment of spirit. You feel it in the refinement of the breath. There's no confusion in your emotional state. It's very loving, beneficent. You people join me? They're ready to do this. Water with ether. You are the flowing of the sacred river. You bring blessings, goodwill, happiness. Continuing with this breath for a minute. Feeling how the ether interpenetrates all the water in the world, in your body, in the world, everywhere, this presence. Continuing with Murshid Sam's elemental breath practice, the direction of fire is up, and you see any You can close the gate outside.
Okay.
Leave this door open.
Appropriate fire.
Upper, we got fire engines.
Yeah, we got the fire engines. They gotta go meet the fire. Yeah. Okay, so now for the fire breath, strong inhalation, right nostril, you're really firing up and you're getting that sense of the burningness of the fire in your body, and some of that came through at the end of that dance. So here's the way I remember Murshid giving it. It's an arouse, and you're arousing energy. You're arousing fire. You're entering the flame. This is something that is overcomes lethargy, for sure. Earth, too much earth, you get sloth, you get a lot of, I can't move, and mix the water and the earth, you get swampy.
And which nostril is which?
The right nostril, you're inhaling.
And then out both?
And out both, yeah. You're not thinking about the exhalation, but just whenever you come to the inhalation, you take that energy up and you feel the risingness of it as a fire rising in your body. And we'll bring ether into it later. Right now, just to be able to arouse the fire. See, then you can just do it. You can just change your state very quickly. Okay.
It's probably stopped out front.
So can you jump on either leg? Everyone was doing the left leg, which I can't do, so.
Yeah, you can jump
Doesn't
on.
matter?
No, it doesn't matter. It's kind of a 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3.
Oh, really? Yeah. That worked.
You're going to bring the ether into the fire.
Ooh.
So now the ether, the bringing light into fire, makes the fire more like light and less like fire. It transforms the anger into ardor. It brings a sense of the eternal flame. Sacred fire. So your breath is moderated a bit because it's going to be more refined. And I like to do this imagining I'm a fire that's being transmuted into light. So I'm just going to be the fire. I'm not going to try and walk, but I'm going to just kind of be the flame. Okay, well, you can do it. You feel a mellowness right in the middle of it, you know. It takes it from kind of the burningness to the fire of the, burning bush, which never goes out. Just as kind of an eternal flame. So you don't have to do it long to get it, but I'd like you to try it. Let's just take a moment with this breath seated and considering all the anger and tendency to just explode things that's in our world. And do this fire breath and then merge it with the ether and feel the influence of your breath working in the atmosphere of the world, bringing this element into the fire, taming it. Amen. Before we go on to the next practice, I want to read one thing here. This is from Murshid Samuel Lewis's writings on the performance of zikr, in which he gives a number of teachings about concentrating on something before you do the zikr, whether concentrating on a sacred phrase, or concentrating on one of the elements, or concentrating on a realized being, or a particular concentration. This is just some excerpts on the one that he gave on fire. Concentration upon fire, or the fire breath, while not generally given to murids, has very definite purposes. It enables the zakir to sing higher notes. It is excellent before engaging in strife or turmoil, as it banishes fear. It brings latent power to the surface. If continued, it can become harmful. It warms the zakir and often makes him or her uncomfortable for this reason, yet even in cold weather it should not be overdone. It is fine for lethargic people to awaken them. It may produce an outer intoxication. It always takes one away from sobriety. In most instances, it needs to be followed by action. It aids very much in the circulation of the blood, which is really the mainstay of bodily warmth, mental perseverance, and moral courage. It enables people to stand up and often stimulates those who feel sleepy. It is wonderful in protecting oneself from another, but it can cause fear and harm, and is not desirable before dealing with friends. It may be used against the enemies of the moment, providing the zakir always dominates the breath. Then it will achieve success. When one has to be fearless or cast aside sentimentality, it is very good. This form of zikr is often practiced by those who have been prepared to continue their evolution along the path of malik or mastery. And because there are a lot of elements of mastery involved in our study here, I think it's important to see what arousing the fire does to us physically and mentally and emotionally, and how it affects us in our breath relationships with each other. Yeah.
Well, I just was put in mind of Gandhi and Martin Luther King.
Mm-hmm.
It's just so strong. Just the qualities they showed in confronting injustice, with bringing light and perseverance and courage, but always light and mastery.
I think that's a very good connection. I met Martin Luther King, very passionate person, full of ardor, full of that inner fire, but it had been tempered by this sense of, the divine presence and the spiritual qualities, so that it became, how else can you have the courage to face the difficulties in life when you're standing for something like that, unless you arouse some quality in you. But you see, when the fire comes up in you, Murshid says you just you can throw yourself in it, but you just burn up ignorance. If you just let the fire, see, this fire is like Rumi says, the real gold says to the counterfeit gold, bring on the fire. Why? Because the counterfeit gold just gets ugly and tarnished in the fire and useless, and the real gold becomes malleable, and the fire makes it soft, and you can shape it into whatever it needs to be shaped into. And so that's that sense of, the molten, the center of our earth is so molten. It's fully, without this fire, we would have perished a long time ago when the planet got totally covered with ice. And so when it was just the breaking through of some of this inner fire that caused it not to just become a perpetual ice bucket here. And so that, and so there's a kinship here with mastery, because we have to overcome, we have to confront and overcome and arouse our, this inner ardor so that it can burn through ignorance. We're going to do the elemental breath for the air. Murshid Sam says, for this you want a very refined breath. So just take some time to smooth the breath down. And see if you can, the movement of the air is zigzag. So you can take this refined breath in through the right, out through the right, in through the left, out through the left, just alternating nostrils with this refined breath, and then letting your movement reflect this freedom of movement. And then when we do the walk of the air, you have just this total freedom of movement. You're okay as long as you just let the breath move you and you don't think about it. Keep the breath refined. surprising you can get more people moving freely like this with the air than you can anything else, yeah. Well, the tendency to laughter is part of the air element.
Yeah. Great,
Okay, now if you bring the ether into the air, as Icon says, you bring the light into it, you get joy. You know, you get a lot of joy. Your movements will be a little, somewhat less extreme, a bit more moderated. So just practice this breathing, very refined, free to move from nostril to nostril. The light of the infinite source penetrating the air. Come on, let's have some more air ether dancers here. Scripture says the Spirit moves where it listeth, the wind bloweth where it likes. You know, you just move like the Spirit moving over the earth. And again, let's take a minute to continue this breath, bringing the whole planet into our ken, and feeling how the Spirit moves through all that breathe, everything that breathes. Earth breathes. water breathes, fire breathes. Animals and trees, stones, all beings. Draw this breath right into the neediest places on the earth, like a dove from above when Dharma decays. So what I would like for us to do is to go from the place where ether is the source of all of the elements and gives birth to each of the elements in turn, infuses them with its presence, and becomes itself transformed from the formless to that which is filled with all form. And in Inayat Khan's rendering, it goes from, the gray of that mist of that mystery of the formless essence to the rainbow. So you can experience it as an infinite emptiness or an infinite fullness. It's really appropriate to do this. But I like to go through it just to kind of like a guided meditation in which we start just with the simple ether breath, very refined, imperceptible through every pore of the body, touching the source of all, the formless mother of all, and feeling that all potentiality in that formless state. Just to step down in the refinement, but staying aware of the ether, give birth to the air and feel the air rising out of the ether, the inner wind. Infused with ether's presence, moving freely. Igniting the fire. Feel the fire coming forth from the formless. Moving your breath in that direction. Infused with the etheric presence, with light. And now giving birth to the downward movement of the water. Flowing forth from this infinite container. Infused with essence. Right down into the earth, its solidness, stability, its tendency to stretch out like a horizontal plane, infused with ether. Now taking this etheric breath not simply as the birther of all, but as that which absorbs it all back into itself. Absorb by stages the fullness of the earth, of the water, of the fire and the air, until you feel this ether breath now as a breath of fullness, visualizing a rainbow. And feel this now as a constant flowing from your bottom, the secret, the mystery, the hidden, to your Zahir, the fully present. Inhaling to that hidden secret where it's all in the void, your bot. Exhaling your Zahir, feeling it fully present, this essence, this mystery, fully present right in front of us in the middle of this manifestation. entering that undifferentiated mistiness of the void, returning to that fullness of the rainbow, absorbing all, returning back, filling and empty. Now we're going to take this practice into vocalization, and we'll begin to make a free who sound. And as you feel the who coming out of the emptiness and taking shape and form, let it, follow your own sense of, beauty and perfection that it takes shape into. And we'll all do that and let the harmony that comes come. tension between eyebrows. Let mind be before thought. Let breath essence rise to the top of the head, and as you exhale, feel it shower over your body as light. What I'm going to ask us to do this coming period is to add, in our meditation, typically we're setting the breath in rhythm, we're encouraging the breath to be long and refined, we're feeling the magnetism in the breath, we're beginning to accumulate the sense of livingness in our body of light here in this body. We're identifying this feeling in the heart as love. We're cultivating this loving, connecting energy in the breath to our sense of the beloved. What I'm going to ask people to do at this stage of the practice is to connect lovingly with an illuminated soul that is close to you. And we're going to spend some time today going over this process of how we do this, and taking up as an example of it what Pir Murshid Inayat Khan gives in his lessons for teachers about the practice of Tasawwuri Murshid. And I'm going to read this teaching of his and then go into it some more. Tasawwuri Murshid. Tasawwuri Murshid, or the thought of Murshid, and he means himself here, so you're thinking of Murshid. I mean, Murshid is kind of a generic term in one sense, but really Hazrat Inayat Khan is inviting us to really call on his presence, to think about him, to draw him close to us in a deep way so that we can use that as a way of elevating our consciousness and also becoming that. Tasawwuri Murshid, or the thought of Murshid, is not given only that a murid may concentrate on a form from which he or she seeks their inspiration, but also that they may keep before themselves an ideal, not only to look up to, but to come up to. Not only to look up to, but to come up to. The whole secret is there's no separation here. He wants to offer you his being in this way of love in which he's practicing no separation, so that you can use the qualities that he has awakened as a pull for you, as something that allows you to come up to that in terms of your own state. not only to look up to, but to come up to. This is like saying not only toward the one, but being the one. You see, it's all, this is involved in this very teaching. And this can be done by trying every moment of one's life to think as Murshid thinks, to see as Murshid sees, to feel as Murshid feels, and to act as Murshid acts in different situations. This is that practice of, you put on, as St. Paul said, the mind of Christ. He said, we have the awareness of Christ, you know. We call on it. So, in one sense, let's just break this down for a second and say, okay, how does Murshid Inayat Khan see you? How does he see you? Anybody?
As a beloved.
Beloved one of God. Mm-hmm. You know, everybody. He sees it. You know, and what does he see in you to make you such a beloved one of God?
Himself. Potential.
The soul.
The soul in you, his own being, your potential, all the sacredness in you, you know, what's hidden, but not to him, not to his eye. He will see that which is your potential, your soul quality hidden in you. You know, I mean, when Murshid thinks of the world, well, how do you think he thinks about this world? Can you imagine that?
Just playthings of God, just the manifestations and playthings of God.
Somehow just moving in the divine Leela, the play of God,
Even with all
the perfection of love, and all the divine qualities are somehow acting themselves out here.
Like Papa Ram does, he's God everywhere he goes, everybody's wrong.
Well, there's also the thing about there was aphorisms I was reading yesterday about the heart being like a rock so that you can withstand the blows of this world, but then there's the love that allows, that's the part I don't remember. The love part. The other part I remember.
Laura, you were going to say?
Yeah, I was thinking of, remember what he said, something about, seeing basically what we do, what we all do is sort of like kids playing with toys, sometimes not necessarily, maybe not always doing the right thing or the best thing, but seeing it because of just seeing it in kind of a light of just, just where people are, but it's okay, that kind of thing.
Acceptance of where people are, and yet looking at it, I think he said somewhere, what the world calls success is like a doll's wedding.
Adult, yeah.
If children are playing with dolls, you want to, okay, beautiful wedding, lovely, nice. But, that kind of sense of the play, not to be so absorbed in these limited vehicles that we lose sight of the divine perfection. All these things in other words, he's inviting you to remember him by, as Paul said, we just put on, we have the mind of Christ. We can think the way Christ thinks. We can feel the way Christ feels. We can act in that way. So that's part of it. And that means practicing no separation. Means that, if I'm caught in a situation in which I'm conflicted, I can put on the heart feeling, put on it Murshid's being like a cloak, and that taking that in as an invitation to oneness, come into it. This can be done by trying every moment of one's life to think as Murshid thinks, to see as Murshid sees, to feel as Murshid feels, and to act as Murshid acts in different situations. Do you think his ego took a lot of pleasure in saying that or writing that? I don't. Not at all. I think he said it just so to throw us a life preserver, a lifeline. You know, I mean, it's like, so that you would know, because people in our culture don't necessarily know that that's true, that you can have that. Yes?
Speaking from his own practice.
Yeah.
His practice with his teacher.
Yeah, and from the whole tradition. And, you know, and certainly this is what the biggest thing I learned from Murshid Sam was practicing presence. That these qualities that I saw in him, which were so terrific, were not something to be put outside of myself. They were something to feel through the oneness of our connection, through in the path of initiation, that they were already a part of me. Only I just needed to be aware of them. To not regard them as something other than me. Mm-hmm. To feel through the loving connection that they're a part of me and that I have access to them and that I can call on that presence. I was giving a talk at the Federation gathering a few weeks ago. Seems like years, because in the meantime we went to Arizona and did a whole Wazifa retreat and so on. But I was speaking about how the seeds of the message that an icon planted have taken forms in so many different forms and keep growing and growing through our continuing to cultivate the seed of it. And I said, well, basically you could throw out the whole inner school if you could just practice Tasawwuri Murshid, I mean, you'd have it right there. It's all right there, and, by practicing that oneness. To feel it not separated from it. And when Murshid Sam passed away through an accident, much faster than we had imagined he would, he planted this seed in us of oneness, and we were able to continue to practice his presence, even though we weren't fully ripe by any means. But we had a sense of, a continuity of being that was not going to be denied. It was destined to fully manifest, and all we had to do was understand that we weren't separate from it, and just to continue to grow with it as it expressed itself in us. Like he told me, I think I was the first one to lead the dances in his absence when he went to New York and for a month, and he asked me to lead the dances when he was gone, and he said, you don't have to think about it. He said, just tune into me before you start and just feel into the way I am when I'm leading, and then just do it. Just do it from that place of oneness. And that always worked for me. So it's kind of like, it's a bit like method acting. Look, guess what? You drew the part of Hazrat Inayat Khan here in this play. How do you feel into it? How do you get into it? How do you put on the way he would act in this situation, the way he would feel, how he would view this? You're not going to have a whole bunch of lines to learn. It's going to be improv. So. Tasawwuri Murshid, or the thought of Murshid, is not given only that a murid may concentrate on the form from which he seeks his inspiration. In other words, I'm going to look at a picture of Murshid, and that's going to inspire me to do something. But also that he or she may keep before himself an ideal not only to look up to, but to come up to. And you see, the teacher or the Murshid in this sense doesn't have to be perfect in any sense. They just have to be authentically connected with this whole stream of being and authentically connected with you. And so that allows you to draw the divine perfection through their own embodiment, because it's not different from your own. And this can be done by trying every moment of one's life to think as Murshid thinks, to see as Murshid sees, to feel as Murshid feels, and to act as Murshid acts in different situations. This means a perfect self-effacement, which makes the soul a mirror. The Murshid reflected in that mirror becomes the spirit of the mirror, and therefore one becomes the same spirit which one holds in one's soul. There have been several Buddhas in the tradition of Buddhism. Not only Gautama Buddha, who is known to us as Buddha, the other Buddhas were the ones who did not only look up to Buddha as the other Buddhists did, they came up to Buddhahood and became Buddhas themselves. That is the ideal to arrive at. After the Prophet Muhammad's time, there came caliphs who succeeded him. Every caliph of the 4 caliphs of the Prophet showed one or the other quality of the Prophet to perfection, if not all the qualities, proving thereby that they did not only follow Muhammad, but they became Muhammad. This is the whole secret of mysticism, which is neither studied in books nor merely attained by meditation. The whole secret of it is to make an ideal, to follow an ideal, and to become it. It is in this that the purpose of esoteric work is fulfilled. You know, an icon had a very hard garden to sow, to plant. The ground was hard, people were stiff, they weren't cultured to taking in these kind of teachings. You know, he came with a great deal of optimism about being able to bring the wisdom of the East that had awakened in him to the West and communicate it. But then he found that the forms that he had used were not so readily, people were not so readily receptive to, such as Indian music. And people didn't have an ear for it. Such as the discipline of the esoteric school, where people just practiced self-effacement and took things in the stage of assimilation, you know, without a lot of resistance and argumentation and ego around it. You know, he couldn't use that. He couldn't use music. He couldn't use Muhammad, for example, who had been the ideal that he'd worked with as a in this stage of, because people had a tremendous bias against Muhammad. He wrote a book on the mystical life of Muhammad that was never published because there was no audience for it. Instead, he said the important thing is to have an ideal of a fully realized being. And so he worked with that. But he was very, but he had to take, this was not easy for him to give up his music, to give up his way of working, and what did he do? He gave talks, because, people had never heard all of these teachings. It's kind of like Senzaki apologizing for his talks on Zen, saying, this is not my Zen, but this is a dirty job, somebody's got to do it because nobody's talked about this stuff before here. Because words, we have such a thing with words where we can imagine if we understand something conceptually, we've got it. The whole of the whole of the mystical path has got nothing much to do with this kind of cognition. It has to do with feeling into oneness, living from oneness. Jesus said, "I am the vine, and ye are the branches thereof." You know, so if a branch has the consciousness of being a part of the vine, in the same way, you know, there's no separation between you and Jesus. But one of the leaders in England let him know when he mentioned Muhammad that she couldn't relate to it, that she didn't like Muhammad. And he came home and he spoke to his family about it. He said, "She loves me and she hates Muhammad." He said, "I've eaten Muhammad. I've digested Muhammad. I am Muhammad." You know, so I mean, he's saying the same thing. Look, I took this ideal of Muhammad, I ate it, I digested it, and I became it. You know, I mean, how can she not love Muhammad if she loves me? But it doesn't work that way. You've got to go and find the one that your heart can open to. You know, and it doesn't have to be a man. It can be a woman. It can be Mary. It can be Mary Magdalene. It can be Tara. It can be Kuan Yin. It can be Sita. It can be Radha. It can be Rukmini. It can be Yeshi Shogil. It can be, there's so many. Mother Krishnabai, who Sufi Ahmed Mirad Chesti said he was the most illuminated soul he ever met. And that included her teacher, Papa Ramdas, all I'm saying is it's the principle of feeling into the human being that you can accept in that way as an ideal, one that you can see the light fully in. Because when you do that, it breaks the shell of our ego in a certain way. Because on the one hand, you're effaced in another person, but on the other hand, by doing so, you're acknowledging that in principle that person is not any different from you. That what's in Murshid is in you. And that's what Murshid is saying here by suggesting this practice. He says, that my being is available to you in the inner world if you feel into it the way that Sufis have always done this, through this. And one of the ways in which we do feel into it is through acknowledging that, getting into the mystery of the breath and acknowledging how the breath itself is this tremendous connecting force of our sympathetic nature. Our empathy flows in connection through the breath and through the heart. And both of these are means of receiving fully the transmission. So, I mean, that sense that a human being is capable of becoming God realized gives you permission to be God realized. Gives us permission to be God realized. Gives us permission not to feel like we need to put anybody up on a pedestal. You look at their qualities in a sense of, okay, this is something I don't see in myself. I can rise to it by knowing that I can think that way, I can feel that way, I can act that way, I can, look at things that way. And then you just, you call that being close to you, and you breathe. And so, to take for a moment the being of Pir Murshid Inayat Khan, and practicing oneness, breathing, this presence, feeling the invitation to awaken our soul in the same way as his soul is awakened. By breathing this empathetic breath of oneness as he's invited us to do. Murshid Sam said, if you want to practice Tasawwuri, adopt the rhythm of that being, adopt the breath of that being. There's no better way to come into oneness than by adopting that inner breath. And if you're going to do the breath of Hazrat Inayat Khan, it needs to be very long and very majestic and refined. Very inwardly powerful, very much under control. And let's make a space here and see if we can do this as a walking practice. See, there's a difference between Tasawwuri Murshid and, you might say, Fanafi Sheikh. Fanafi Sheikh, one is simply living in that attunement. One has become one with it and there's no separation. Tasawwuri Murshid, you put it on. It's like you put on the robe You put on the atmosphere. You adopt it in a feeling of oneness, but it's not like you're going to walk out of here and you have to, maintain that all the time. You see, you put it on for as long as you can endure it, so to speak, and you don't tax yourself to be beyond what you can do. But it's so beneficial to just have a sense of that. So. I like to call to mind things that Hazrat Inayat Khan has said. I like to feel the Sufi symbol kind of emblazoned on my chest so that I feel my heart like that heart which sees all as the beloved ones of God, that is powerful vehicle of love, but acting with all wisdom. So within that heart is this crescent, which means receptivity and openness to the one being. So it's not about self-assertion. It's about being empty before the source in this deep place of feeling in the heart where you empty out your sense of self-expression and you let that star rise. The crescent brings out the star. Your openness, your sense of self-effacement brings forth the light of the one and only being that is your soul's light shining right through your heart. And the wings that allow you to have the buoyancy to rise above all the stuff that wants to suck you back into it and push your triggers. That's the breath that raises you up. So continuing to feel into this being, to feel our oneness with it, to use those qualities in that way. Murshid gave the walk, feeling like bringing the harmony of his soul. And he carried the Veena as a way of, he was going to bring this secret of harmony. But he found that people couldn't hear it, so he had to give up his music in a certain way and bring it into the realm of finding that note of being that would be in harmony with all beings, that could see the sacredness in all. But you can just walk like that, or walk feeling this Sufi symbol shining forth, or just taking this long breath of Murshid. He says, I'm a tide in the affairs of human beings. If those catch this current, will all be born with me. We're in this caravan of illuminated souls. It's not an empty vehicle. It's carrying us towards the ideal. When I think of the quality that comes with Hazrat Inayat Khan's being, this tremendous dignity and self-respect and majesty which comes from knowing your soul is your real self. So nothing can take that away from you. How about a few people at a time joining me here? in this walk of Tasawwuri Inayat. One thing you can be sure, he wants nothing more from you, nothing for you, but your happiness, your realization, your awakening to the presence of God in your life, so that you can be a vehicle of blessing to yourself and others. And that's enough at one time walking. Let's just breathe with the people that are walking. Feel this atmosphere of Murshid, like a big angel right here in our midst, smiling down on this parade of beings, feeling within each one of you. I'm the wine of the divine sacrament. My very being is intoxication. Those who can drink of this cup and yet remain sober will certainly be illuminated. Drink of the cup, the wine of the divine presence, and yet maintaining at the same time this mastery of your own state. Feeling the livingness of heart and peacefulness in this interconnectedness of spirit. Let's say Khatum. O thou who art the perfection of love, harmony, and beauty, Lord of heaven and of earth, open our hearts that we may hear thy voice, which constantly comes from within. Disclose to us thy divine light, which is hidden in our souls, that we may know and understand life better. Most merciful and compassionate God, give us thy great goodness. Teach us thy loving forgiveness. Raise us above the distinctions and differences which divide. Send us the peace of thy divine Spirit, and unite us all in thy perfect being.